Welcome back.
Okay. Well, welcome back to you too.
Thank you. I'm so excited to get back into this.
There's been no break for everybody else.
There's been no break for everybody
Due to
else,
your
thanks
scheduling
to
prowess.
our wonderful scheduling prowess.
There you go.
But for you and I, Kitty, it's been like just under 2 weeks since I read chapter 11.
Mm-hmm. Are you
and then
ready?
I just, as I'll ever be, hello and welcome to the No One Ask You podcast. For this particular series, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, ThatDarnKitteh. Kitty and I are both going into this story completely new with almost no knowledge of the story or world.
Each segment, we intend to cover what happens in each new chapter and discuss our experience along the way. This is Mistborn Abridged, a blind read-through, and today we will be covering Chapter
11!
Here it comes. Yes.
Oh, man. I was literally on the edge of my seat with this, sentence by sentence, could not put it down. I really felt this one viscerally as we were going through it. What was your experience?
That's it. Yeah, it was, ooh, that's my feeling. My feeling was, ooh, a bit grossed out.
If I were to give this chapter a title, that title would be, It Just Got Real.
Yes. It's very real. And it got real, and then it got realer.
Yes.
You will see what I mean.
Up until now, we have sort of, I think, said something to the effect of, we're being told this is this really dark world. It's so traumatic. We care so much about Vin, but come on. And we see the witticism and the colorful characters and the back and forth of these colorful personalities. And we've been saying, okay, but yeah, the world's dark, but look at all this really fun stuff. And then this is the chapter where it's like, okay, no, this is actually really dark.
This
and
is
dangerous.
and this is what you're fighting. So for me it redoubles this. Okay, well, this is a worthy cause. This is not, like we had the chapter with the discussion with Ham, where Ham's like, oh, is it a moral good what we're doing? Basically, he's like, is it good because the Lord rules God and decides what's good? And you look at this and you're like, yeah, fighting this I think is a good thing. I
Probably.
don't know. Seems I don't know. I'm not a philosopher, but it seems like fighting this. And okay, if you haven't read this, let's get into the actual what we actually learned to see. But first, let's have a look at epigraph.
It seems Rashek represents a growing faction in Terris culture. A large number of the youths think that their unusual powers should be used for more than field work, husbandry, and stone carving. They are rowdy, even violent, far different from the quiet, discerning Terris philosophers and holy men that I have known. They will have to be watched carefully, these Terrismen. They could be very dangerous if given the opportunity and the motivation.
More questions about the Terrisness come along.
Yes. So
Sazed is what do you call it? Ancestor of this kind of person.
A descendant.
Yeah. Sorry, other way around. Yes, descendant.
So this power, these unusual powers that they have, do you think this might be the beginnings of allomancy?
Maybe. It's how unusual these powers are. Yeah, I'm wondering if it seems like it's going to be combined or related to allomancy in some way. And we have a little hint of that maybe in in this chapter when we see some things about Sazed. So I don't know what they are now, what Terrismen are now, but maybe the origin of allomancy is within their mysterious powers, and that's how they're related.
Yes.
You seem to disagree.
What if do I seem to disagree?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
I'm wondering if how to word this. 1,000 generations leaves a lot of time for genetic manipulation, right? And we know that there are strict rules about the nobleman and the ska interbreeding. We know that there seems to be some sort of genetic component to allomancy. So, what if the noblemen are descendants of the Terrismen who supported the Lord Ruler in his ascension?
That makes
Is
sense.
kind of what I'm wondering right now.
Yeah.
Because the Lord Ruler gifted allomancy to the nobles who supported his ascension in the beginning as well. So it's sort of coming from a few different angles.
Yeah, so I don't know if it was nobles that were noble at the time, because the Terrismen don't seem to be noble at all. Maybe they were noblemen within Terris.
Right.
Yeah. Holy men
But
and all of that sort of thing.
But then the question becomes, if that's the case and the noblemen are descendants of the Terrismen, why is there still a Terris? Unless the current Terrismen are descendants of the Terrismen that didn't support Rashek, which doesn't work because it would be the ska who would be the ones that didn't support the noblemen.
Yeah, and the Terrismen are servants of noblemen.
Right. Okay, so there are a few potential holes in my theory, but it's interesting.
We will see. We have questions. So that's the thing.
Yes.
Because remember, like the Terris, we have got, this is before you get to the point where a Terrisman, like Sazed is saying, a Terrisman without a master is like, I don't know, something basically without you don't have a purpose without a master. So like that was clearly not their culture before. So
right.
Yeah.
And
but
then,
the point is, the point that we can take from here is that there are mysterious powers. Terris people have mysterious powers. They're not just tall people.
And that there's a growing faction of
There was a split
them
previously.
Yes. And then I'm
Okay.
also keeping in my mind that I feel like I want to categorize allomancy as different than prophecy. So
Yeah.
these unusual powers could be connected. Well, no, because if it's unusual for the Terrismen, then it wouldn't be connected to the prophecy. I don't know where I'm going with that.
I don't see their powers as having anything to do with prophecy. Are you saying? Oh, you're thinking that the unusual powers are for prophecy?
No.
They're the
So
one. That's why the philosophy. Yeah, I don't know.
Never mind. We're also getting more of Epigraph Man behaving or thinking like a ruler or a person in charge.
Yeah, they would have to be watched carefully. Dangerous. They can be given that. We can also just take that away. They can be very dangerous. Well, they survived whatever happened after this in some fashion. So, yes, they can be dangerous, and they probably still can be.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well then, let us get into chapter 11, Sunshine and Rainbows.
Yes, greatest. Happy.
Kelsier paused in the doorway, blocking Vin's view. She stooped down, trying to peek past him into the lair, but too many people were in the way. She could only tell that the door hung at an angle, splintered, the upper hinge torn free. Kelsier stood for a long moment. Finally, he turned, looking past Oxen toward her. Ham is right, Vin. You may not want to see this. Vin stood where she was, looking at him resolutely. Kelsier sighed, stepping into the room. Doxson followed, and Vin could finally see what they had been blocking. The floor was scattered with corpses, their twisted limbs shadowed and haunting in the light of Doxson's solitary lantern. They weren't rotting, yet. The attack had happened only that morning. But there was still a smell of death about the room, the scent of blood drying slowly, the scent of misery and terror. Vin remained in the doorway. She'd seen death before, seen it often on the streets. Knifings in the alleys, beatings in lairs, children dead of starvation. She had once seen an old woman's neck snapped by the backhand of an annoyed lord. The body had lain in the street for 3 days before a Ska Corps crew had finally come for it. Oh, that's alliteration, yeah? A Ska Corps crew?
Ska, yeah.
This is the wonderful commentary folks come to listen to.
This is it, yeah. And that is the fun times that part of the fun times that we're having in this chapter so far.
Yeah.
Just merry life.
merry, happy, sunshine, and rainbows.
We even they have Scar corpse crews, because you know what? It's such a common thing to just have corpses in the street. I like that.
Yeah.
That's what that means. It's not even. It's not like, okay. I know my mind went to Monty Python. Bring out your dead. Bring out your dead. Like that. That's where I went. But it's not funny.
And yet, I love the imagery of.
I was looking for some sort of joy. Yeah.
Yet none of those incidents had the same air of intentional butchery that she saw in Cammon's lair. These men hadn't simply been killed, they had been torn apart. Limbs lay separated from torsos, broken chairs and tables, impaled chests. There were only a few patches of floor that were not covered in sticky, dark blood. Kelsier glanced at her, obviously expecting some sort of reaction. She stood looking over the death, feeling numb. What should her reaction be? These were the men who had mistreated her, stolen from her, beaten her. And yet these were the men who had sheltered her, included her, and fed her when others might have simply given her to the whoremasters. Reen probably would have berated her for the traitorous sadness she felt at the sight. I liked this line.
Traitorous sadness.
Yeah, because in this moment, it feels a little bit more like a source of strength, Reen's advice here. Just a tiny bit, rather than the nigh on abusive element. These are the moments when Reen's teachings should matter most, yeah?
I can see that. She kind of leans on that sort of toughness that that you do need in a world where this sort of thing happens. I mean, there is the word berated, so that is the way that Reen treated her. So don't worry, we still have that abusive thing in there. But she is using that to say, oh, well, you need to kind of look at whether these people were really valuable, and there's not many valuable people. So yeah, it does help her out here. I didn't find it sweet or anything. I don't find it warm.
No, it feels necessary.
Yes, it's not. So I think the word safe doesn't apply for me. In terms of the way she doesn't go, and she leans on this because it's there, not because it's warm and cuddly and a good place to go. And it is quite interesting, the choice to not have Reen's voice in her head. It's just the idea of him berating her, which might be a subtle nod at the fact that she's moving away from her, having him just constantly in her head.
Now that she has Kelsier's guidance.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That's subtle. I didn't pick up on it. Neat. Of course, he had always been angry when, as a child, she'd cried as they left one town for another, not wanting to leave the people she'd grown to know, no matter how cruel or indifferent they were. And that's more of Vin's desire for connection. I had a flashback to Clubs' workshop. It was late at night, right before they were about to go out for her first training session, and she was listening in on the crew eating and laughing,
wanting
jovially.
To go into the actual warmth there. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, she hadn't yet gotten over that weakness. She stepped into the room, not shedding any tears for these men, yet at the same time wishing that they had not come to such an end.
I think that's a good place to land. Literally, yeah, okay, so they weren't my best friends, but I don't think that this is a good thing to happen to them. I'm not going to root for this. I'm not going to be like, yay. And I'm not going to be... It's... You can lament that something as crazy and unnatural and,
this
horrible has happened.
She is not a vindictive person. She isn't a cruel person. Ha! No. Vindictive.
She is not vindictive. She's just... Ta-da.
Yeah.
Okay, you may continue. Sorry, I just wanted to point that out. That, like, yeah, there you go. They don't have to be your best friends for you to be disturbed by this.
Yeah. In addition, the gore was disturbing. She tried to force herself to maintain a stiff face in front of the others, but she found herself cringing occasionally, glancing away from mangled corpses. The ones who had performed the attack had been quite thorough.
This seems extreme, even for the Ministry. What kind of person would do something like this?
Inquisitor, Doxson said softly, kneeling by a corpse. Kelsier nodded. Behind Vin, Sazed stepped into the room, careful to keep his robes clear of the blood. Vin turned toward the Terrisman, letting his actions distract her from a particularly grisly corpse. Kelsier was a Mistborn, and Doxson was supposedly a capable warrior. Ham and his men were securing the area. However, others, Breeze, Yedden, and Clubs, had stayed behind. The area was too dangerous. Kelsier had even resisted Vin's desire to come. Yet he had brought Sazed without apparent hesitation. The move, subtle though it was, made Vin regard the steward with a new curiosity. Why would it be too dangerous for Mistings, yet safe enough for a Terrisman steward? Was Sazed a warrior? How would he have learned to fight? Terrismen were supposed to be raised from birth by careful trainers. Let's take a quick moment here to...
Yeah, sorry, I'm also... Daisy is on top of the keyboard, so I was muting myself. Daisy?
Hi, Daisy.
She is being extra today. Okay. Are you done? Are you done, pretty girl? Okay. Trying to keep the keyboard away from her because she seems to want to... She's like, oh, this is a good podium. Okay.
We got Daisy in the chat, folks. Trying to chat.
Yeah, she'll probably be there for the premiere. If I'm on my computer, she'll give you some space bar. That sounds horrible. Okay. Yeah, so you see, here we go. Here is the well, the Terrismen have some sort of powers. They are formidable. We had hints of it where it's like people, even Mistings, would have a problem trying to fight Sazed. That's kind of the comment that Kelsier made. And then he's like, I fear that, well, I pity the man who comes in between you and Vin, basically. Then we have this here where, yes, he can come into this situation and he wouldn't be a liability.
I wondered if it had anything to do with the possible dealings of an Inquisitor. Like, if there was still an Inquisitor in the area, would Sazed have been able to negotiate a way out of any kind of deadly encounter? I don't mean like talk them out of continuing to pursue, but more like, no, we're nobles, we swear, type of an extra layer of protection situation going on.
Although I guess the comment that they had about the Lord Ruler knowing about Seekers was when they were talking about him being close to the Lord Ruler, it was about him being a Seeker, not a Terrisman. Sorry, so I'm just noting that because my mind went to, we need to keep Sazed under wraps because we don't want the Lord Ruler knowing about him. But the thing is, Seekers are secret anyway. So a Terrisman, not all Terrismen are Seekers. So it's fine.
Yes. Sazed's smooth step and calm face gave her few clues, but he didn't appear shocked by the carnage.
Interesting.
Vin thought, picking her way through shattered furniture, stepping clear of blood pools, making her way to Kelsier's side. He crouched beside a pair of corpses. One, Vin noticed in a moment of shock, had been Ulef. The boy's face was contorted and pained, the front of his chest a mass of broken bones and ripped flesh, as if someone had forcibly torn the rib cage apart with his hands. Vin shivered, looking away. Okay, look, I said that Ulef deserved the Kamen treatment, and, well, up until this point in the chapter, I assumed that meant being a beggar. Okay? Did he deserve that? Well, I'm pretty upset with him for betraying Vin. Not gonna lie. But that...
I did wonder if you would be satisfied with that, and I thought, no, I don't think so. I think it's a bit over the top.
Yeah, no, that's too much. It also had me wondering about what it sounds like what happened to him was so feral. And I sort of rethought on our discussion about being able to pull metal out of bodies, and it almost sounds from the discussion. Yeah, it almost sounds like something like that might have happened here.
Jeez.
Almost.
Well, I'm so glad my brain didn't go there, but thanks. Because I didn't think about the mechanism of how. I was just like, I let it be a murky question in my head. I didn't want to go into exactly what it would look like or whatever. Yeah, nicely done, Dorkus. Nicely done.
I'm sorry.
No, it makes sense. That's why it's so painful.
Well, we'll move on. I'm sure the rest of the chapter will be nice and sunshine and rainbows, okay?
Right? Yeah.
This isn't good. Steel Inquisitors don't generally bother with simple thieving crews. Usually the Obligators would come down with their troops and take everyone captive, then use them to make a good show on an execution day. An Inquisitor would only get involved if it had a special interest in the crew.
You think it might be the same one as before?
There are only about 20 Steel Inquisitors in the whole of the Final Empire, and half of them are out of Luthadel at any given time. I find it too much of a coincidence that you would catch one's interest, escape, and then have your old lair get hit. Let's take a moment there. I think it's very interesting information that there are only about 20 Inquisitors.
Yeah, I circled that, man. What was your feeling about that?
These are special forces.
I'm wondering how many there have ever been. Are these the same?
Yeah.
Like they seem ancient and just they are immortal and they just continue going. Like it doesn't seem like they have new ones. It doesn't sound like there's it seems like there has always been 20-ish, and that's it.
I think they sort of allude to this. I think we're going to be dealing with one specific Inquisitor. Like the one Inquisitor that seems to have a vendetta against Vin. A vendetta.
A vendetta. Yes. Look, we're trying to find the joy in this, okay?
Sunshine and rainbows.
Puns are a good place to go when you're walking around corpses, okay? Yeah, I agree.
Man.
I think there is going to be this at the moment. I mean, that is what's happened here. There is one Steel Inquisitor that has it in for Vin, and that's going to be a problem going forward.
Look, if the Lord Ruler is the final boss, we need a couple of sub-bosses along the way.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to fight all 20, I hope not, but there's at least one sub-boss that we're going to have to confront. Yeah.
Yeah. Vin stood quietly, forcing herself to look down at Ulef's body and confront her sorrow. He had betrayed her in the end, but for a time he had almost been a friend.
Pain. I'm just saying.
Pain.
So, the Inquisitor still has my scent.
Kelsier nodded, standing.
Then this is my fault. Ulef and the others...
It was Kammen's fault. He's the one who tried to scam an obligator. He looked over at her. You going to be all right? I loved this part because it felt very, very fatherly to me. Yes.
She goes... you can say, yeah, you read that. Okay, so wait, okay, hold on.
I mean, I thought we were going to have a discussion on that part.
Yeah, sorry. So you're going to be all right. That was the fatherly thing that you got from there, because there is a next...
No. It was Kammen's fault that felt very fatherly. It was Robin Williams saying, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
It's not your fault.
It's not
your fault." Yes.
Because it seems like someone could come to that conclusion.
And
he's making sure. Yeah, he's trying to stamp that out, and that felt very fatherly to me.
Yeah, that's the kind of thinking he's like, he knows that will just lead to turmoil inside her, and he's just like, no, it's Kammen. And it's not that he's pulling that out his ass to try and help her out. It is true, and
it is true.
And even so, yeah, you can't sit and put fault on her as if she knew it was going to happen and she went and did this. Like Kammen actually had way more knowledge about what could happen, and
which I called.
Yes,
I totally
you did.
called it.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Yes, but then we have so there was that soft moment from like Kelsier's being nice and soft, right? Mm-hmm. Then there's this. Okay.
Vin looked up from Ulef's mangled corpse, trying to remain strong. She shrugged.
None of them were my friends.
That's kind of cold-hearted, Vin,
I know.
she
So
said with
yeah.
a quiet nod. Oh,
So yeah.
that
Yeah.
that is whoa.
So yeah, you had Kelsier just trying to help her out there, and he's like, "Are you okay?" kind of thing, cares, and then she's just like, "Hey, I'm not gonna take any of that." Basically, she pulls up and is like, "No, they're not with my friends." Like literally, we're standing by one that was actually a friend in the end. She thought, "Okay, some
Yeah.
kind of friend," but she has to say out loud for herself, "Oh no, none of them were my friends." And then I also, it's another father sort of moment where it's like, "That's cold hearted, Vin." It's like, whoa, here. I'm not going to reward you for like, say if this is Reen would be like, "Yeah, they weren't your friends. They're not whatever. They're useless. They weren't good for you. Not even that. Not even good for you. It's just that this happens, and you should get over it. That sort of thing." Whereas the Kelsier is like, "Wait a second. You can have bad feelings for people and probably should, like as in you can feel sort of sadness for them and you should." So I like the fact that he's like, "That's cold-hearted," and she does say yes, but she says it quietly. She's like, yeah, she knows, but she's just gonna, she thinks that's the way to go with that. But I like that Kelsier kind of put up a flag there and said, "No, that's not the way we do it."
And if she had thought none of them were my friends, I could have so easily have seen Brandon Sanderson writing in Reen's words.
Mhm. Yeah.
These very much feel like Reen's words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Kelsier regarded her for a moment, then crossed the room to speak with Doxson. Vin looked back at Ulef's wounds. They looked like the work of some crazed animal, not a single man.
The Inquisitor must have had help. There is no way one person, even an Inquisitor, could have done all this. So in between there, sorry, I told myself that. Vin told herself that. So it was, usually we were trying to abridge, but the Inquisitor must have had help, Vin told herself. She's trying to, that little bit there, she's trying to just tell herself that this one Inquisitor can't be this terrible.
Almost as if she's trying to calm herself down a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. There was a pileup of bodies near the bolt exit, but a quick count told her that most, if not all, of the crew was accounted for. One man couldn't have gotten to all of them quickly enough. Could he have?
There are a lot of things we don't know about the Inquisitors.
Kelsier had told her.
They don't quite follow the normal rules.
Vin shivered again. Footsteps sounded on the stairs, and Vin grew tense, crouching and preparing to run. Ham's familiar figure appeared in the stairwell. "Area's secure," he said, holding up a second lantern. "No sign of obligators or garrisoners." And that's their style. They want the massacre to be discovered. They left the dead as a sign. The room fell silent, save for a low mumbling from Sazed, who stood at the far left side of the room. Vin picked her way over to him, listening to the rhythmic cadence of his voice. Eventually he stopped speaking, then bowed his head and closed his eyes.
What was that?
Vin asked as he looked up again. "A prayer. A death chant of Zikazi. It is meant to awaken the spirits of the dead and entice them free from their flesh so that they may return to the Mountain of Souls. I can teach you of the religion if you wish, mistress. The Kazi were an interesting people, very familiar with death."
Not right now. You said they pray. Is that the religion you believe in then?
"I believe in them all.
None of them contradict each other.
Oh, often and frequently they do. But I respect the truths behind them all, and I believe in the need for each one to be remembered."
Then how did you decide which religion's prayer to use?
"That one merely seemed appropriate," Sazed said softly, regarding the scene of shadowed death. "Kel," Doxson called from the back of the room, "come look at this." Kelsier moved to join him, as did Vin. Doxson stood by the long corridor-like chamber that had been her crew's sleeping quarters. Vin poked her head inside, expecting to find a scene similar to the one in the common room. Instead, there was only a single corpse tied to a chair. In the weak light, she could barely make out that his eyes had been gouged out. Kelsier stood quietly for a moment.
Sorry. I just wanted to stop you there because
Yeah.
there's an eyeless man sitting there. And I'm glad we're saying prayers for the dead. That's all.
Kelsier stood quietly for a moment. That's the man I put in charge.
Milev. What about him?
He was killed slowly. Look at the amount of blood on the floor, the way his limbs are twisted. He had time to scream and struggle. Torture. Vin felt a chill. She glanced up at Kelsier. Shall we move our base? Ham asked. Kelsier slowly shook his head. When Clubs came to this lair, he would have worn a disguise to and from the meeting, hiding his limp. It's his job as a smoker to make certain that you can't find him just by asking around on the street. None of the people in this crew could have betrayed us. We should still be safe. No one spoke the obvious.
The Inquisitor shouldn't have been able to find this lair either.
Kelsier stepped back into the main room, pulling Dachshund aside and speaking to him in a quiet voice. Vin edged closer, trying to hear what they were saying, but Sazed placed a restraining hand on her shoulder. Mistress Vin, if Master Kelsier wanted us to hear what he was saying, would he not speak in a louder voice? Vin shot the Terrisman an angry glance. Then she reached inside and burned tin. The sudden stench of blood almost staggered her. She could hear Sazed's breathing. The room was no longer dark. In fact, the brilliant light of 2 lanterns made her eyes water. She became aware of the stuffy, unventilated air. And she could hear, quite distinctly, Dachshund's voice. Went to check on him a couple times like you asked. You'll find him 3 streets west of the Fourwell Crossroads. Kelsier nodded. Ham, he said in a loud voice, causing Vin to jump. Sazed looked down at her with disapproving eyes.
He knows something of Alamancy. He guessed what I was doing.
Yes, Kel, Ham said, peeking out of the back room. Take the others back to the shop, and be careful. Of course. Vin eyed Kelsier, then resentfully allowed herself to be ushered from the lair with Sazed and Dachshund. That's the end of the first POV.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's cover the bit about the religions and stuff. If there's anything you want to talk about that, then yeah.
I think it's sweet. I love the insight and wisdom of their truths in all of the religions. And even though they conflict in many ways, there are truths.
That didn't sound silly to me. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's actually quite, and his job is to keep them, is to remember all of them, and yeah, that it kind of helps that he believes in all of them. So it's not like he's, oh well, I know this religion over here that's stupid and crazy. Like I understand that there is conflict, but he appreciates them all. So he kind of believes in them all. I like that idea.
Yeah.
I don't think it's something that then everybody could do. I think it's got something to do with him literally being a seeker. It's just part of the way he works in his brain that he's able to just square that circle for himself, or several.
And it's just
squares.
It's just more likability for
it is.
Sazed.
Yes, it's just he has no intolerance. He appreciates all things basically, and but at the same time, he's like, it just seemed appropriate that this he pulls out a religion and he's just like, yeah, this one works, because it's about death, and he wants them to go back to the mountains. He's not thinking about whether these people believed it. It's just he's honoring them in a way as well. He's just like he's taking time to notice that, yeah, this was not a great thing. A lot of people died here. I think that also brings some good gravity. Well, not gravity. Everyone knows the gravity of the situation, but it brings some sort of healthy closure to it. Some sort of respect to the people that have died.
Yeah. And
oh yes, and her interaction with so then my next thing I wanted to talk about was her interaction with Sazed, in that, like, he's like, just don't be rude. Basically, if he wanted to talk with us, then he would speak with us.
Yes,
that's it.
I enjoyed that, and it's true. It speaks to Vin's inquisitiveness and her curiosity and her need for knowledge and desire not to be left out, but it's also kind of rude. And when we learn later on in the chapter, at the time I didn't know. I was so in the moment, I didn't know who they were talking about or what they were talking about. So I was
Mhm.
very much in Vin's place of not knowing. And it was when we learn who and what it is that they were talking about, it's like, no, this was clear. Keeping her out on this one was clearly another fatherly attempt at protecting Vin and her psyche.
Yeah, and yeah, just also just so that there can be. I don't think that like Kelsier would like never tell her what was going on here. It's just
Yeah.
it's better to find out this information and then go tell her. Like bringing her along is just not a good idea.
And it's also
yeah,
it's also even more dangerous for Vin specifically
exactly. If
if
this thing has her scent,
yeah, if whatever it is that did this is after her specifically.
exactly. Yeah, and
Which,
so I mean,
the counter argument to that being, if it's after her, she should have total knowledge. It's also that she's a young girl and he's an adult, and yeah,
and there's a lot of
going on.
there's psychological stuff in terms of relationships and that he is considering literally her psyche, like you're saying, like doesn't want her to see these sort of things. He's sad that she's seen this scene in the first place. He doesn't know what he's going to find when he goes looking for this person, which, spoiler alert, Cameron. But yeah, he doesn't know what he's going to find. He doesn't want Vin to see that. I don't think he would just never tell her about it. And even so, if he didn't tell her, it would be for good reason. And yeah, I also interesting the way that the dynamic between Vin and Sazed, she's really taken Sazed as he really is the steward, and he's not a danger to her. Like she looks at him angry. She's taken like they're friends now because she looks at him angrily. She doesn't care. We've had in the previous like the way she's with him.
When she approached Ulef, she did so timidly.
Yeah.
When she approached Kamen, she did so timidly. But when she approaches Kelsier, when she approaches Sazed now, there is much more confidence.
Yes, she has a feeling, and she will be angry with them, and she will question them, and all of that. So she will rebel, that sort of thing. So that kind of lends itself to saying, okay, she does feel safe around them. That's why. Also, the thing that she did point out, she's like, wait a second, so he knows something of Alamancy, which is like, that goes towards another point towards the what the hell do Terrismen do? What do they have? Is it just that he made a guess, or does he have some sort of power knowledge that she was burning things?
Well, one, I suspect that he, and frankly, most people know more or less what the basic Alamantic powers are. He's also incredibly wise, and I suspect he knows Vin's character very well by now. So I don't think it would take much knowledge of her character to guess. And she did that little jump when Kelsier started speaking loudly.
And her eyes are watering and whatever. Like and she almost passed out when she started burning tin because of the smell of the blood. Like, no, I can see that the estimation would be there, but the thing is, Brandison over here has made a point of saying that Vin has noted to herself that he guessed, and I'm like, okay, so yes, why do we need this word guess? Like she had to say to herself, he guessed that. And she had to note, oh, he knows something of Alamancy. And yes, and it's right. It's a very easy explanation and he's very perceptive. He knows her. You're right as well. But I want him to have cool powers, okay?
Hey, me too. Me too. He probably does. Shall we move on to the second POV?
Let's.
I should have taken the carriage, Kelsier thought, frustrated by his slow pace. The others could have walked back from Kamen's lair. He itched to burn steel and began jumping toward his destination. Unfortunately, it was difficult to remain inconspicuous when flying through the city during the full light of day. Kelsier adjusted his hat and continued walking. A nobleman pedestrian was not an irregular sight, especially in the commercial district, where more fortunate ska and less fortunate noblemen mixed on the streets, though each group did its best to ignore the other. Patience. Speed doesn't matter. If they know about him, he's already dead. Kelsier entered a large crossroads square. And I remember, like, it didn't occur to me that it was Cam, and although in hindsight it should have been clear. So I was just like in this rushed mental state myself, trying to get through this.
Yeah, just going through this in terms of the writing, and also when you're reading this, it does seem it is a shorter chapter. Like it really does. I was in the same mental space of like, wait, who are we? Okay, yeah, I had a sense that we're going for Cameron, but I wasn't putting things together as quickly as required. So the pacing of this was very good because you do want to not go, oh well, now we're off to Kelsier. I mean to Cameron. Like you don't you are in the haste of this.
Yeah.
You know, like the way it's written, it helped to us to have to be just experience what's going on in a quite a what do you call it, like immediate way. I like that. I didn't put it all together immediately because I was too busy like reeling from the butchery.
The reeling,
and also
and also like
also the idea of like what are we looking for, and he's already dead. Well, how is he going to be dead? More death, more butchery. Where are we going? Oh god. And also the immediate danger was definitely what I was thinking about all the time, like, oh shit. And because he is feeling haste as well. He wants to be faster. He wants to have taken the carriage, and he's telling himself to be patient. You're like, oh, what's going to happen? Is there going to be an attack? Yeah, anyway.
Yep. And you can sort of feel that panic rising. Kelsier entered a large crossroads square. 4 wells sat in its corners, and a massive copper fountain, its green skin caked and blackened by soot, dominated the square's center. The statue depicted the Lord Ruler standing dramatically in cloak and armor, a formless representation of the deepness dead in the water at his feet. Now that's kind of cool. Like, what does a formless representation of the deepness?
Yeah.
And
representation. Yeah, and
just I'm connecting it in my mind to the epigraphs and the deepness, and epigraph man feeling it, and just there's a lot there.
Yeah, was it formless? Is that really what it's like? And also, okay, in the statue, how do you make a formless thing? Is it a blob? Is he just like fighting a blob? And well, he's standing there triumphantly, I suppose, as well. It's just like it's a nice note to further world building of, you know, this is what the Lord Ruler is supposed to be to the people, or what he wants people to see him as. It's just this. He is the savior. Yeah, he's a religious figure.
Kelsier passed the fountain. Its waters flaked from a recent ashfall. Ska beggars called out from the street sides, their pitiful voices walking a fine line between audibility and annoyance. The Lord Ruler barely suffered them. Only ska with severe disfigurements were allowed to beg. However, their pitiful life was not something even plantation ska would envy. Kelsier tossed them a few clips, not caring that doing so made him stand out, and continued to walk. 3 streets over, he found a much smaller crossroads. It was also rimmed by beggars, but no fine fountain splashed the center of this intersection, nor did the corners containing wells to draw traffic. The beggars here were even more pathetic. These were the sorry individuals who were too wretched to fight themselves a spot in a major square. Malnourished children and age-withered adults called out with apprehensive voices. Men missing 2 or more limbs huddled in corners, their soot-stained forms almost invisible in the shadows. Kelsier reached reflexively for his coin purse. Stay on track. You can't save them all, not with coins. There will be time for these once the final empire is gone. Ignoring the piteous cries, which became louder once the beggars realized he was watching them, Kelsier studied each face in turn. He had only seen Cameron briefly, and that's when it clicked for me. Oh, of course.
Okay, that's what we're looking for.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Kelsier studied each face in turn. He had only seen Cameron briefly, but he thought that he'd recognize the man. However, none of the faces looked right, and none of the beggars had Cameron's girth, which should have still been noticeable despite weeks of starvation. He's not here. Kelsier thought with dissatisfaction. Kelsier's order, given to Milev, the new crew leader, that Kamen be made a beggar had been carried out. Dockson had checked on Kamen to make certain. Kamen's absence in the square could simply mean that he'd gained a better spot. It could also mean that the ministry had found him. Kelsier stood quietly, listening to the beggar's haunted moanings. A few flakes of ash began to float down from the sky. Oh, yeah, a couple of moments to say that I appreciate that Dockson was running tabs on that situation.
Yes, yeah, he was like, it wasn't just like, oh well, it's dealt with, cool.
Yeah,
So of course
Dockson
it was
seems extremely competent and altogether
reliable. Yeah. Gosh, just a note a little bit further. Just subtle. It's a very subtle note that I had, but I didn't want to stop you because, hello, stuff's happening. There was just talking about just the way, we've got the cinema in our heads as well. The way that Brandon Sanderson gives you the statue of the Lord Ruler defeating the deepness, but then he talks about the water having ash in it. It's like you have this representation as if there's this great noble thing that happened, and then there was the consequences. Though you have your fountain and whatever, but there's ash falls. So there was this juxtaposition of the two things that was quite deliberate. I think. I know this is far back. I don't know if you can maybe cut it and put it in previously.
We'll keep it here.
Sorry, but yes, and then going back into what was it like when it hit you that Kamen? Did you go, oh shit, well he's dead? What did you do?
Oh yeah. No, I knew as soon as I knew they were looking for Kamen, yeah, he's dead. He's totally dead.
It just increased my worry though, because I was like, well, Kamen. Then what did Kamen say? And then that I knew he was dead, but then I was like, this means a lot more now. Because I now know what Kamen means as well. If Kamen is captured / taken /
yep /
a
lot there's so much anxiety.
Right?
We'll get to it. Something was wrong. There weren't any beggars near the north corner of the intersection. Kelsier burnt in and smelled blood on the air. He kicked off his shoes, then pulled his belt free. His cloak clasp went next, the fine garment dropping to the cobblestones. That done, the only metal remaining on his body was in his coin pouch. He dumped a few coins into his hand and carefully made his way forward, leaving his discarded garments for the beggars.
Okay, hold up.
Okay.
Holy shit, when this happened, I was like, oh god. What, we're going, because it is good for him to be preparing to do whatever, but he takes off his shoe. He's mistborning, okay?
This is Clark Kent unbuttoning his shirt, revealing the S right before he's about to fly off.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, great comparison. It is that, and you're just like, oh shit. And I love that the beggars are just going to go and take the cloak, whatever, because that's how destitute everything is. It's just the whole world just lends itself to it doesn't matter that he's in broad daylight misspawning here, because those are just the beggars. Beggars are like, whatever, can I just get something? And then also there is such danger right now from the smell of blood that Kelsier is shining the S, basically. This stressed me out a lot.
Yeah. The smell of death grew stronger, but he didn't hear anything except scrambling beggars behind him. He edged onto the northern street, immediately noticing a narrow alleyway to his left. Taking a breath, he flared pewter and ducked inside. The cramped, dark alley was clogged with refuse and ash. No one waited for him. At least no one living. Kamen, crew leader turned beggar, hung quietly from a rope tied far above. And that was I saw that. I saw him hanging there.
And then this next sentence made it even worse.
His corpse spun leisurely in the breeze, ash falling lightly around it.
Damn. It was really look, hanging is always there is in movies, you just have the swinging and the swaying and whatever, and that's always disturbing. But just the word leisurely, it was so good. That's just a good sentence. And then
he hadn't been
there's
hanged
more.
There's more. There's more sunshine and rainbows.
Can you tell I'm actually trying to prolong this and just keep it away? But let's just do it. Just go. Do it.
He hadn't been hanged in the conventional fashion. The rope had been tied to a hook, then rammed down his throat. The bloodied end of the hook jutted from his skin below the chin, and he swung with head tipped back, rope running out of his mouth. His hands were tied, his still, plump body showing signs of torture. And I immediately thought of, like, a shark
Yeah.
that's been hung.
Like, yeah. The shark is more pleasant to look upon at this point. It's just a human and the rope coming out of his mouth, and just, oh my god, it's just, oof. I did not see that coming. I was just like, yeah, he's hung, he's dead, cool. No, and also he had not been hung in the conventional way. This is a way that Kelsier has seen this before as well.
This isn't just how they hang people. This is ritualistic.
Yeah, but he's seen this before. He knows what this means something. It's not like they just came up with this for Cameron. It was just such a horrible shit is so real right now.
It's so real. This isn't good. A foot scraped the cobblestones behind, and Kelsier spun, flaring steel and sprang forth a handful of coins. With a girlish yelp, a small figure ducked to the ground, coins deflected as she burned steel. Vin? He cursed, reaching out and yanking her into the alleyway. He glanced around the corner, watching the beggars perk up as they heard coins hit the cobblestone. What are you doing here? He demanded, turning back. Vin wore the same brown overalls and gray shirt she had before, though she at least had the sense to wear a nondescript cloak with the hood up.
I wanted to see what you were doing,
she said, cringing slightly before his anger. This could have been dangerous. What were you thinking? Vin cowered further. Kelsier calmed himself. You can't blame her for being curious, he thought, as a few brave beggars scuttled into the streets after the coin. She's simply... Kelsier froze. It was so subtle he almost missed it. Vin was soothing his emotions. He glanced down. The girl was obviously trying to make herself invisible against the corner of the wall. She seemed so timid, yet he caught a hidden glimmer of determination in her eyes. This child had made an art of making herself seem harmless. I loved that line. That was cool.
Yeah.
So subtle. How did she get so good so quickly? You don't have to use allomancy, Vin. I'm not going to hurt you. You know that.
I didn't mean it. It's just habits, even still.
Do you think that's true?
No. She's trying it out. Look, it is a habit for her to do her cringing thing and to you know.
But the allomancy thing, you think she did that on purpose?
Yeah. Well, look. Okay, so instinct would make her just soothe, but usually her soothing in the instinct form is just like not subtle at all. But now she's just been with Breeze, learning stuff and learning to be subtle with Breeze, and now she's trying it. Look, she's using it. I know that she's deliberately trying to do it better, but that doesn't mean that she's also not afraid.
Interesting.
And she's not just. Maybe she's. Wait, how long? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, wow, what you're saying? Interesting. Like there's more. Tell me more.
Well, just interesting because I took her at her word for it. The question was in my mind, but on thinking about it, I was like, okay, it may have been an instinctual soothe.
Yeah, it's instinctual. You know what? Yeah, I think it would be, but that's how good she is. I suppose that instinctually she's doing it subtly. It's not so much about her curiosity that she's, ooh, let me see if it works. It's like, no, wait a second, I need to do it in the most subtle way because that's the safest way. I don't want him to be angry that I'm using allomancy on him. Well, I'm just going to use it instinctually.
Well, I think the subtlety of the soothe is due to her skill, but the fact that she soothed, I take her at her word that it was an instinctual, automatic response to being scared.
Yeah, okay, I agree. The subtlety is just the only thing that points towards like she had more thinking about it. Do you know what I'm saying? She thought about how to do it. But
right, yes.
it is, but you're right. She's so good at it that even instinctually she's doing it better. It's great. I think she is, and I don't think that suddenly she's going to stop operating the way that she would before in terms of trying to soothe and cringing and all of that stuff. That's her normal way of going about getting out of trouble. Is like showing, look, I'm not a threat. I'm not a threat. I'm invisible. I'm nothing. And she, oh god, it did hurt that she's cringing against Kelsier. That's also what made him stop and go like, oh, like he did feel worried about her and whatever. But the anger came from that worry, and then he sees her cringing, and that's one way that if you cringe from someone, it's kind of like an insult to them, because you're saying, oh, you're dangerous and out of control, and I'm in danger. And Kelsier would never want her to think of him that way.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, Kelsier is also very impressed by her allomancy, her soothing.
And what did you think of Kelsier's response to being soothed? Do you think this is how he obviously wouldn't hurt Vin?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he would have been so quick to calm down if she hadn't soothed him in this moment? Or do you think he would have pulled back on his own after realizing it was Vin?
Yeah, he would have pulled back. I think it would have taken longer, because do you remember, like, we're learning that you take certain emotions that are the kind of the emotion has to be there. You can't just force this. So this emotion that would have taken a longer time to get to the forefront, because the major, you remember what Breeze was talking about, like the major emotion will take over the others. So what she's doing is taking away that anger, and because he was worried about her and frustrated that, oh no, she's here, that she's in danger with me. But after all of that, I think he would have come to that conclusion of like, look at this, she's right in front of me, she's in danger, she's just curious, of course she's going to do this.
Yeah, he may well have began the process of calming himself when she like coincided with the extra. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
yeah, I feel like he's. It's not that she's like gone and put the goodness in him. Like it's there. But he also does feel. I think he feels a bit ashamed as well.
Yes,
because it's like he got angry at her and she's cringing. That's what I'm saying.
Well, it's a very tense situation, and it could have been anyone. It could have been the Inquisitor.
Yeah, you get a fright because there's someone there suddenly.
It happens.
Poor little Vin.
I was in the Discord voice chat before the holidays, and Andrew had gone AFK for like a really long time, to the point that I forgot he was even in the call. And then he came back and he said, hey, and I had been alone for so long, I literally jumped.
You're like, what the fuck? Who is this? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And now you just, because you were alone. Now imagine if you were in a dangerous situation or a stressful situation that
where someone's trying to harm you.
Yeah, and then you're like you'll get a huge fright. So, and I'm glad he didn't hurt her. He could have.
Yep.
So, yeah.
It's all right, Kelsier said, laying a hand on her shoulder. But remember, no matter what Breeze says, it's bad manners to touch the emotions of your friends. Plus, the noblemen consider it an insult to use allomancy in formal settings. Those reflexes will get you into trouble if you don't learn to control them. And see, this is great. So much not Mary Soonis going on here. She is so talented. She really is. But there is still lessons to learn.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a valid lesson, but he goes straight into it as well, which I think the fact that he just thought about how did she get good so good so quickly, but then he puts, instead of saying, wow, that was amazing, he's taking the right thing and saying, here's a lesson, quick. Like, okay.
Right. And there's no scolding there or anything like that.
It's just like, just remember that, okay, that's very good, but actually you take this other consideration. You can't. You need to get out of that. I think that's it's a great learning moment, teachable moment.
Yeah.
And also, you know what? There is etiquette as well among allomancers. So it's considered rude. So just don't do it. Which it makes sense. I like that.
Yep. She nodded, rising to study Kamen. Kelsier expected her to turn away in disgust, but she just stood there quietly, a look of grim satisfaction on her face. No, this one isn't weak. No matter what she'd have you believe.
They tortured him here? Out in the open?
Kelsier nodded, imagining the screams reverberating out to the uncomfortable beggars. The ministry liked to be very visible with its punishments.
Why the hook?
It's a ritual killing reserved for the most reprehensible of sinners, people who misuse allomancy.
Cameron was an allomancer.
Kelsier shook his head. He must have admitted to something heinous during his torture. He must have known what you were, Vin. He used you intentionally. I called it!
There it is. Uh-huh. There it is. It was a subtle question that you had. You were just like, I don't know. It's possible. We knew it was possible that he knew. So it makes sense. I like that it wasn't that clear. I like the little reveal. These are little reveals. They're not these huge like mystery boxes. They're just these tiny little nuggets of woohoo, you see, and the answers that we always have questions, and then when we get the answer and we were right or wrong, whether we're right or wrong, it's still exciting when we get the answer.
Yes.
But I'm excited that you were right. I did
Yay.
go in my head like, he called it. Dorkus is going to be happy that he got it.
Victory lap. She paled slightly.
Then the mystery knows that I'm a Mistborn?
Perhaps. It depends on whether Kamen knew or not. He could have assumed you were just a misting. She stood quietly for a moment.
What does this mean for my part in the job then?
We'll continue as planned. Only a couple of obligators saw you at the Canton building, and it takes a rare man to connect a Ska servant and a well-dressed noblewoman as the same person.
And the Inquisitor?
Kelsier didn't have an answer to that one. Come on. We've already attracted too much attention.
Damn! Kelsier had no answer for that one.
Yeah.
Some boss is crazy.
I have expressed a theory
Mm-hmm.
in past episodes that the reason that Vin's mother tried to kill her was because she was Mistborn.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason Reen and Vin were constantly on the run is because presumably the father, but who knows who else, were constantly chasing after her because she's Mistborn.
Yes.
I'm wondering in the back of my mind if Brandon Sanderson will expertly weave in whoever this Inquisitor is to that storyline as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if that's how we will learn of Vin's past.
Interesting. I look. I don't know if it would be the same Inquisitor, but that remains to be seen. And I don't feel either way for it. Just like, what am I saying? Like, I'm not confident that it is this, that there's been this one Inquisitor that's been chasing her whole life. But I would think that would be pretty cool as well, a cool reveal. But even so, when the exposition, just that being said, whenever there is exposition, it is so good. It is not clunky. It's not dumped upon you, Rebel Moon. It's not that sort of thing. It's like it's woven in, like you said, expertly as well. Like when we do hear those sort of, and it might not be in this book, it might be in, in the later in the series where we find that out. But I have no doubt that sort of thing. Well, there's going to be no loose ends in this way. There'll be. I don't feel like it. Yeah, this is too major of an end to leave loose. If you know what I'm saying. That thing of what were they running from and how. Like her past is definitely going to become.
It has come up too frequently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He hints at it. Oh God, I love it. I love it. Love it. Love it.
It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts?
God damn, what a gruesome chapter. It's not an other thought. It's a restating horror. Okay?
Well, I had brought up briefly the hero's journey in the last chapter, I think, and how her entering into the building felt very much like entering into the cantina. This would fall in line with having entered into the unknown and facing challenges now. So it would make
Yes.
sense that this is the part where the world starts to get darker and we as the audience start to see a lot more of the dangers in the world.
Yeah,
She has
we're feeling
left
it.
the known world for the unknown.
And look, this world, it's just an extension. The world was dark before, but now we're facing challenges related to that, like concrete challenges. It's not just, oh well, the world is horrible. It's like, no, there's literally now there's immediate dangers that are happening. And yeah, and more character work done in terms of their interactions, everything. It's not there's not one thing left out. I guess having watched horrible media, sorry, I haven't read horrible books, but I just think of storytelling. And just having seen that, it's just the way that I'm appreciating things being done well. Just, characters do what characters do. It's understandable from a character's point of view. There's nothing out of character going here. It's just so easy. Like, you learn more through every interaction. That we can have commentary on every conversation that they have about the relationship. We can talk about the, not conversation about, we can have commentary on their relationship based on any conversation that they have, because that is the amount of thought that goes into a dialogue. And yeah,
Well
I guess
said.
just coming off of Rebel Moon, you're just like, come on, dude. Anyway,
I haven't
this
seen
is
it
not.
yet.
Please watch
Don't-
it. Just watch it.
Are we going to do a think on it? I wasn't really planning on seeing it.
No,
I'll
I
watch
think
it if
everybody
we
needs
think
to
of
watch it. It's a good study to figure out why you can't just put stuff in front of people and be like, yeah, there you go, movie. No, there's a certain way of doing things. And it makes you appreciate good storytelling. So thank you, Brandon Sanderson, for existing. And if we are going to have this as a, what do you call it, an adaptation, please, God, can he keep it together? Anyway.
Anything else to say?
Well, if you've made it this far, you should be subscribed, and you should have liked the video. But you know what? If you haven't done that, just do it now. And there's also other things going on this channel. Dorkus is doing speeches. Can you? Yeah. So look out for those. Not just me yabbering on in this. There are more things coming from this chapter. From this channel. Tell us, Dorkus.
I uploaded some readings of Cicero's work, so testing those out, seeing how they're received, and have some other things on the back burner that I'm hoping to share with the world eventually.
Turn on your notifications.
Yeah. Also, if you haven't subscribed to ThatDarnKitteh, please go and do so. She has wonderful panel shows on Thursdays and usually Tuesdays, but occasionally on Wednesdays. She will do either a diagram of some kind, usually debate, or she will be playing games, most likely Meowster Hunter. She is tremendously entertaining, and she has built a wonderful community, which you can find in the Discord, which is linked on her channel.
Thank you. And we will see you next time.
In Chapter 12. Bye!
Bye!